Hi there, Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. Thank you for watching Brother Be Well's Youth Substance Youth Prevention Series, supported by Elevate Youth California, funded through Proposition 64.
Really appreciate you guys coming together today to talk a little bit about the work that we did over the summer. You'll remember that we came together as a part of the Youth Substance Use Prevention Academy with Brother Be Well. And a part of that work, we decided kind of late in the game as we were planning this for spring, was to fold in some policy work that we were doing. We had discovered some of the work that local school districts were doing around mental health. And we decided we had this wealth of resources coming to us by way of you guys, the three of you and the five others that were a part of the Youth Summer Academy this summer. So I just wanted to bring us back together and talk about a little bit of that work and share a little bit of it with people that, of course, couldn't be there with us this summer. So let's start out with our three youth. Erick, we'll start with you. Can you talk about where you were coming from when you came to that policy work? So talk a little bit, just really briefly, about your thoughts about mental health. Did you even have mental health policy on your mind when you signed up for the academy and when we got started in late May?
While filling out the form, I remember seeing it and I thought about it, and it brought me back to what I did in high school during my junior year and senior year. Is what I ended up doing is that one of my teachers, she was a big advocate for mental health. She spoke about it a lot. She made us make posters about it, sort of set up tables for it so everyone can do a little activity. We're partnered with behavioral health, which was the local where people go get services for mental health, and also with substance abuse as well. But when it came to that, that's where I was coming from, the background of it. And when I saw it, I thought it was really interesting. I know what my school offers here, so I thought it would be really interesting to see what it offers in Sacramento. So when we did it and we started getting into it, I was like, this is really interesting, because you get to see what schools have a lot of something, have a little bit of something, and of course there's a variety of different things that come with it. Funding plays a role. We talked about that during that, and everyone gave fantastic suggestions to it. And when I was listening to it, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of schools that could benefit from this and could take ideas from this. And because it's so useful to have these policies, because students are changing, people are getting into a new setting, especially with high school and junior high as well. People are changing, their bodies, their mentally, the way they think. So things are rampant high. So many outside factors can influence that. So I feel like that was where I was coming from when I read about it, when I was filling out the form, and when we eventually got into it.
Yeah, appreciate that, Erick. You reminded me, we really didn't know. We decided, as I said, late in the game, to add it. So I appreciate hearing that perspective about how you thought it worked as we rolled it out. What about you, Joel? What were you thinking? Did you know that that you'd be able to have a potential influence on school policies regarding mental health when you signed up for that academy?
Yeah, when I signed up for the academy, I didn't know that we were going to be focusing on policy and throwing some suggestions in. So, for the most part, when I was coming into it, I was coming from my background, and I've been in the foster care system. So, there's a lot of services that was for foster youth and people in the foster care. So, I thought when I was going to school, there wasn't really that many stuff that was implemented or resources for people who were there. So I kind of was happy to provide my own perspective and just connect with everyone else in the academy when I signed up.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And how about you, Axel? You got some interesting kind of dual perspective. Talk a little bit about your background when you were a student, and then you work with youth today. So what are your thoughts about the need for organizations having firm policies in place for that address mental health?
Yeah, for me, just like Joel, whenever I applied for this program, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I read substance abuse prevention, so I'm like, great, this is gonna tie into my work because I work with youth. So I'm gonna be able to use all of the things that I learned from here onto my work. And then I did learn a lot with everyone, with all the mentors, with all the other men working with us. But then we started learning about mental health issues and then policies. And then I was like, oh, we can put our 2 cents in it too from our own experience. So then other schools, other school districts can learn from us too. And I can implement all of these policies. So whenever I was in high school, I remember I went to the Bay Area to high school. So in there, I don't ever remember hearing anything about mental health or you can come to the counselor for if you need any help. I never read or learned anything like that. I don't know if it's because I didn't see it or they just didn't put it out there, but I didn't see anything like that. But right now that I'm working with other youth here in Placer and Sacramento County, I do see some schools that they are providing some things, but not all of them. And then for some of the ones that are providing some services for the students, they're not providing all of the ones that they need. For example, some of them all come from different backgrounds, different ethnic groups. So some of them also don't speak the English language. So there's that barrier too, that it's not being met for a lot of the students. And that's what we talked about in the past summer academy, where we were able to jot down all of our ideas and hopefully something good comes out of them and they do implement all of those at school districts.
Yeah, I know something good is going to come out of it. Axel, I appreciate you sharing that. I also appreciate you sharing that there wasn't a lot there when you were in school. I was in school a lot earlier than you were in school. I've also raised 2 children in the public school system, and I don't remember either of them, let alone me, having anything in the schools that addressed mental health concerns of the students there. I just don't recall that. Joseph, we decided to bring for this conversation. Joseph is with us. He's a mental health clinician, one of our trusted clinical advisors at Brother Be Well. Joseph, talk about a little your experience as a marriage and family therapist. I would think you are caring for and helping and treating young people that are also coming from schools where there's not a lot there. So they run into trouble in their personal life, and there's nothing in school or at home. If they're a parent like me, we got the best of intentions, but we don't really know always what to do. Can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I would be happy to report to everybody is that I just attended a school mental wellness conference that kicked off a couple weeks ago, and there's tons of funding that's going to school-based mental health. Now, in addition to working for ERU as a marriage and family therapist, I am a school-based mental health clinician kind of in my day job. So I am a part of that community of folks that are providing services at schools related to mental health and substance use. So what I'm seeing out in school districts and local education agencies, which are kind of your umbrella for the county that oversees all the other school districts, is there's a lot more mental health integration being built into the school system. So what we've been used to when a student is recognized as needing some mental health services, it's either special education or they're referred out to a community provider. What we're seeing now is, thankfully to the state being able to kick down one-time funds and ongoing funds, we're seeing districts being able to create in-house a system for mental health services to be provided at school by a school-based mental health employee. So I'm seeing it across almost every district in California. And so I think it's something for us to look forward to. We're seeing more and more of it. There's tons and tons of job opportunities out there. So which tells me and which tells everyone else that, hey, they're taking it serious. One thing I would say that there is a little bit of opportunity, but I am starting to see growth in is the emphasis specifically to substance use. So we're seeing, incredible growth on the mental health side, being able to provide services at school where students are without it having to be referred out. But we're starting to slowly see a trickle of substance use services, kind of catching awareness that we're seeing that there's a need. And so districts are starting to move towards addressing that need and again, bring it in-house as opposed to having to refer everything out.
And you were so good, Joseph. One of the reasons I like working with you, you're good at teasing other productions. So we're going to have a whole other conversation about that substance abuse side. So hang on to that thought for sure. Talk a little bit, you touched on the shift that you're seeing there. Can you talk about maybe well, before I get there, let me ask you this question. Are you finding, I would think that a lot of community members, and you guys can help me, if I'm off, just let me know. I would think a lot of community members of school boards who are struggling to pay for, pencils with teachers, it's all over the news that teachers are going out using their own money to pay for school supplies, and that schools are so underfunded. There are going to be some people that are going to hear, wait a minute, if we're getting extra funding, we need to put it into the formal curriculum. And they don't necessarily see mental health as being just as important as math and English and science. What are your thoughts about that, Joseph? And then I'm gonna throw that to the three of you as well, our youth today. What are your thoughts about that? How should someone be thinking about that as opposed to a more traditional way about the funding of a school district?
Well, one thing I would say is a couple of different things. So one of the things that's really big in schools across the country is SEL, social emotional learning. And basically what that entails is our students, are they also developing as human beings socially and emotionally? So part of that encompasses the mental health aspect of it. I would say it's a blessing that our state superintendent, Tony Thurman, was a former social worker and school counselor. So I think us having an advocate that understands that there's mental health issues going on with students, that it is impacting their learning. So I think that's a huge component as to why we're starting to see a shift in some of the funding that normally wouldn't even exist go to the mental health side of things. So, and I think even the educators are starting to recognize that when they do see students that are struggling, that there's a mental health component potentially that's affecting their learning. So we may still see some folks that are, that have that mindset of we should get more funding for school supplies. But if our students aren't showing up to school because they're having mental health concerns or they're unable to focus, then we need to be able to get that remedied first before we can even have them accessing the school supplies.
And I saw Axel nodding, so I'm going to throw it to Axel. Axel, you agree with what the man had to say on that?
Yeah, I do agree that sometimes it's in all of the funding. So whenever there's like extra money here and there, it's usually put either onto the sports or any other classes or curriculums besides the mental health section, because I'm not sure like they don't see it as important, even though like as Joseph said, if students are not doing good with their mental health, they're gonna be just at home, not having a good time. They're gonna be suffering, and where they should be putting it into school, where it's like our second home. We spend most of our time in there like all week. I don't know, like 5-6 hours a day. Yeah, it's very important just to have it at school, but instead of like putting it into all of these other places that, yeah, they're also helpful for other students, but those that are having the hard time with their mental health, like going through stuff, that should also be going through them too, I believe, because if not, they're just gonna keep going like that in a bad way. They're not gonna be able to focus into school, their classrooms, their assignments, and they're gonna be doing poorly.
Yeah. Yep. And before we pivot to another question I've got for you, Erick or Joel, any final comments on that point? The need for funding, and it needs to be just as important as funding of academia.
If I could go, I'd say like when I hear that when like more funding is being pushed towards mental health, and not the school supplies, I think about it is that if a student doesn't want to learn, and if they're being impeded by mental illness or anything that's going on with them, the pencils and pens are not going to be able to be used to the best they can, or they're not even going to be picked up, because students who are suffering from this will not want to learn. And as Joseph and Axel said, that it will stop their learning. So I feel like that's a big step forward to sort of continue. And then eventually the following, it will come when they will put the money towards funding the pencils and the pens and everything towards actual supplies.
Thanks. And how about you, Joel? Any comments on it?
Yeah, I would love to comment on it. I think it would be a good thing to focus on mental health, because from my background and what I've been through with, family going through hardships and being in the foster care system, a lot of times youth don't have any way to express that or don't know how to express that. So to have someone there to be able to teach them or connect them to resources for their family, or just connect resources to the youth overall would be it would be much better for the youth rather than pencils and paper.
Really appreciate hearing it, Joe. Appreciate all you guys' perspective. I'm reminded of the summer. You guys came to the table having already, such a wealth of resources and knowledge, and it was so great to see all of that shared in a group setting. I'm gonna change up the order of some of these questions, because something you said, Joel, just now reminded me of something that came out of the summer, and I don't have the name of the person who said it, but we were working with Paul Lee. You'll remember he was our summer intern, and he gave us, outlined 2 districts every week and laid out what they had, and then you guys came back and talked about how good, or maybe I don't want to say good or bad, what they had, the positive things about that, and then the areas for improvement with what those school districts had. And one of our youth said, student behaviors begin at the house, but they carry over into the school. And I remember thinking, that was one of those moments where I said, I'm not sure when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, I'd have had that presence, that I'd have been that smart. Let me just say it. I don't think I was as smart as you guys are. Joseph, let's start with you. You're the associate marriage and family therapist here. Would you agree with that? It seems so obvious to me that people that are interested in educating our students, they really need to be paying attention to what's going on in the house. I'm not beating up on parents. I'm a parent myself, but we got to address it first in the home, because otherwise you're sending pre-existing problems to school that then maybe teachers that possibly aren't so trained to deal with it have to deal with it. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct. Not only in my private practice as a marriage and family therapist, but I'm at the school sites seeing the behaviors that the students are bringing to school. So with that, my first go-to, of course, as a marriage and family therapist is, well, let's get the family together and kind of see what's going on there and work to see how we can impact from the home to the school. And that's the exact same concept and kind of the trajectory of how it works is whatever's happening at home, the kids are going to manifest, those behaviors are going to manifest in the school setting. So whether it's, potentially abuse, or there's some depression, or some lack of, of resources that are needed, as the kids are coming to school, we're seeing the symptomology of that. So it's true on the positive as well as it is on the harmful or the stressful things. As kids are showing up to school, that's where, again, we need to have teacher education and there's understanding of that. So I don't want to say that the schools are completely missing it. I mean, we have systems in place where, again, like I had mentioned before, the social emotional learning aspect, where there's understanding that there's aspects of their emotional health that are going to impact, how they perform academically. So, but I do believe that that's the direct line of sight that we should be looking at, is how can we intervene at home if necessary, or if possible, if the resources are available, because we are going to see those, the symptoms of what's happening at home being brought to school. It's not only impacting, the teacher or the classroom, it's impacting the student, it's impacting other students. Behavior issues can potentially manifest, and then that's where we start to see the labeling. We start to see some of the things that contribute or exacerbate some of the mental health symptoms that the kids are experiencing. So that's definitely an important piece to keep an eye on.
Really appreciate it, Joseph. We've got just a few minutes left. I want to ask a couple other questions of our youth today. You guys talked about a lot about the need to get the information out. So you've got school districts that are funded. They've got policies and procedures and systems and resources in place. But if the students don't know about it, then it's kind of money that you spent. It's not really being maximized. Let's start with you, Eric, and then we'll pivot to you, Joel. So can you talk about, from your perspective, quickly, what are the best 1 or 2 ways in which school districts can start thinking about disseminating that information to students that'll be effective, maybe a little bit outside of the box of the way that things are communicated today?
It's kind of like difficult to pinpoint 2 exactly things, and one of my answers may seem obvious, but it's through the students. It's through students in which people learn, and they, students talk. But the thing I would see doing is probably like making clubs that promote these, and that have students like advocate for these sort of things, to advocate that there is a specialist on site. Did you know that we have a hotline? Did you know that we could do this? So I feel like that is probably the forefront. It may seem like an obvious answer, but I feel as though that would be like a big thing, to mainly have students at the forefront advocating for this. And another thing would be, not a lot of schools I'd say would do this, but also send it to parents, like send all of the resources to parents, either would it be through an email or maybe through a paper that the students can give to their parents and say like, hey, we have this, because, that those are the 2 things that I see that would probably work best. Again, one of them may seem obvious, but that's like the ones that I would see working best.
It wasn't obvious to me, so I bet somebody's going to be watching this and it won't be so obvious to them. What about you, Joel? What do you think about the best way or ways to disseminate information to students on mental health?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with what Eric was saying. I definitely think that there should be convenings. Maybe the whole school go inside the auditorium and they have a whole presentation about what resources they have, about mental health, about drug abuse, and overall just putting those resources out there. And along with checking in with students, because oftentimes the students who are getting in trouble, who are late to school, or who are, not completing their assignments, not getting good grades, those people might need those resources. And I would say just generally reaching out to them and trying to speak to their parents, or maybe just, giving them that extra cushion to where they feel comfortable to express themselves if they need those resources, or, that support system at the school. So
You guys are reminding me of why we picked you for that summer academy. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness today. Axel, what about you? Before we go to the final couple of questions, what are your thoughts? You're working with youth right now. What's the best way that students and the teachers rather and administrators in schools can think about getting the information that's needed to the students?
Well, for sure, something that's there all the time, not just for like Mental Health Awareness Month, something that's there wherever and ever for so students know that they can go to all the time whenever they need it. Like Eric said, like a club. That'll be great to have something going on throughout the whole year, the whole like all school year, so students can go in there whenever they feel like they're in a crisis or they're feeling down or they need some help, someone to talk to. Also have like maybe not just academic counselors at school, but maybe a therapist, so they can go to one specific room where it's quiet, calm. They can let their thoughts out to the therapist, or something quick at least, so they don't get into a crisis. Or also like involving students, like creating, I know that there are some students who work in graphic design for the yearbook or things like that, flyers. So have those students, whoever feels passionate enough on the topic, to create flyers to post them around the school, maybe on the social media too, since that's where students are more active, like the youth are more active on Instagram, Snapchat or things like that, now TikTok. But somewhere where the school can also post things online where the students are more active and they can see it. Or also what they used to do on my school back in high school, the announcements, including the announcements, so the whole school hears it at the same time, so they're all aware that there's this resource available on campus. That'll be another great option for them.
Yes, really appreciate it. And we've got just a couple minutes left here, so I've got a final question I'm gonna throw it to each of the four of you, and you got 1 minute each. So I know how hard that is. If you remember the summer flew by. We had these hour-long sessions, and then we looked up and we have 5 minutes left, and we had to take care of some stuff. So that's where we're at right now. I'm gonna ask each of you with regard to mental health, and when you think about the policy work that you did on school districts, what's the number one mental health concern you think that youth are dealing with that districts might want to be paying attention to when they're deciding on allocation of funding, when they're deciding of the things we've talked about, things that are holding the students back from learning? Joseph, I'm gonna wrap it up with you, because as our clinician, you can let us know how close we are to hitting the mark here. But let's start out with you, Eric. What's the top mental health concern? It's a bit of a quiz, because we talked about all kinds of mental health issues last summer. So what's the number one mental health concern for youth that school districts need to be thinking about?
Well, man, I know how obvious was, but I was thinking, and I was kind of getting nervous on who else you're going to pick so I could think some more. But I'd say for me, I'd say it definitely begins sort of at the home. So any sort of home problems that students are having, whether it be they're homeless or they're having some sort of problems at home with the parents, of course, abuse, also all sorts of things. So I feel like that would be a main concern, is definitely asking like, hey, are you okay? Or, hey, what's going on at home? Or is everything okay at home? Because that's pretty much where everything begins. That's what I would say.
Yeah, appreciate it. What about you, Axel? What do you think?
I think depression is also one of the biggest ones, because I know that this past years, because of COVID, a lot of our students have been going to school through Zoom. Some of them have lost the way to interact with each other. They're not sure how to talk to other kids or other youth anymore at the same time. So I feel like they lost that sense of communication, of being able to interact with each other. So now whenever they did get back to school, some of them, and I can say this because I work with some of these kids, they feel like no one's paying attention to them, that they're not able to make friends, that it's harder now. So now they're at home, let's say it's an only child, they don't have anyone to talk to at their age. Their parents don't get them the same way like the other ones are gonna get them. So I feel like once they go to school, some of them, they don't interact enough with each other, and then they isolate, and then the other patient just keeps building and building. And then if they don't have like a safe space that they can go to, if they don't have any friends and they don't have like that safe space, as I was saying, like a therapist or a club or any other place that they can go to and feel comfortable enough to open themselves, to open up, I feel like they're just gonna keep getting more depressed and depressed, and then that's just gonna affect their academics, their lifestyle, and their mental health as a whole, and even the physical health too. At some point.
Yep. And how about you, Joel? The number one mental health issue, Joel, that schools and that students are dealing with, that folks in schools need to be thinking about when they're deciding what to address on the mental health side.
Yeah, so for me, it was I thought it was mainly about, substance abuse and them finding good vices, good coping mechanisms to deal with those mental health problems, because oftentimes youth who are having mental health problems, they use drugs and stuff of that sort to cope and to get through those mental health, hardships and stuff. So I would say that's mainly one of the things that I thought of.
You're as good as everybody else, Joel, on teasing things. Joseph tried to do it at the beginning. We're going to be talking about the substance abuse issues. I appreciate hearing that perspective too. Joseph, before I throw it to you and you help me close it out, I want to just tell you guys there was another moment, and when we talk about mental health concerns, we didn't, in an overt way, build it in, issues that the LGBTQ community are dealing with. And Brother Be Well, of course, we serve all brothers 13 and up. Sexual orientation isn't an issue. LGBT community is absolutely a part of that brotherhood. But you guys wouldn't have known that going in. And the week where we looked at a district, and I can't remember who said it first, but someone said, hey, I've noticed there's nothing there for the gay community, and everybody chimed in. It was just a really powerful moment. So I wanted to share that as well. And for the schools and colleges out there, school districts out there that are talking about policy, don't forget about your LGBT community students as well. They're struggling sometimes and don't feel comfortable talking about their struggle. Joseph, take us home in a way. You're the mental health clinician here. I am not. Tell us what, from your perspective, the top mental health issue that schools and colleges, school districts need to be thinking about as they're putting mental health policies together.
It's a great question, and it's almost a trick question because there's different answers to it. And you talking about the LGBTQ community, it also really depends on the population. So the age range, we're seeing different things, but everyone that answered is ultimately correct. We're seeing depression, anxiety, and substance use as really kind of at the top of the list. For me, I work primarily with 12 to 17-year-olds, and I could speak to that more specifically. And it's a combination of those three. But I'll leave you with an interesting statistic that I just heard. 1 in 5 students have reported experiencing substance or some mental health concern. 1 in 4 have reported you actively using a substance within the past month. So with that being said, I think that one of the things that we should be looking at, paying attention to, is, of course, the mental health, but the co-occurring aspect of what's happening with substance use and mental health concerns. So I think it's a combination of all of those things, and we can't necessarily separate those, because a substance use problem is essentially a mental health problem as well.
Yeah, it really is. Perfect. Well, I knew you'd do it for me, Joseph. You make my job easy. If you've enjoyed this conversation and these guys come back, because this same group, we got them in on a substance use policy conversation. So they'll tell you about their perspectives on schools and what's going on out there, just like we did on the mental health side just now. But I want to thank all of them. Joseph Mealy is an associate marriage and family therapist with HearYou.org. Always good to see you, sir. Erick, Joel, and Axel, I haven't seen y'all in about 7 weeks, so I've missed y'all. It's great to see you today. I want to thank you for setting aside some time tonight to talk about this. My name is Michael P. Coleman, Content Director for Brother Be Well. I'll tell you about a website really quickly. BrotherBeWell.com is that website. Go to that website. If this conversation intrigues you, there are all kinds of videos, audio podcasts, print pieces, all available for you. We're a membership-supported service. but memberships are free. So you could sign up as a member right now at brotherbewell.com. While you're there, sign up for our blog, give us your email address, and then when conversations just like this go live, you'll be among the first people to know about it. So check it all out at brotherbewell.com. Come back for the conversation with these guys to talk about another part of school policy. And until next time, we'll see you. Take it easy.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jason Jones. I'm 19 years old and I'm from San Bernardino, California. This summer, I joined Brother Be Well for their Youth Substance Use Prevention 10-week summer program. And I joined with the hopes that it will help me in the future with behavioral health and mental health one-on-ones. I currently work with students who are at risk. So those are students who come out of probation or students that come out of the foster care system. So I joined just hoping that it would give me a different perspective on kids that are struggling with drug use and substance use. So that was my sole purpose for joining. And we are currently in week 8 and it's flown by. It's been amazing. I've learned a lot. I've also feel like I've contributed a lot. So we're currently working on helping the school districts in Northern California, helping them incorporate mental health resources and substance use resources. So we're helping these kids find ways to get off of drugs, and we're helping them understand what the drugs are doing to their body. We're also giving kids resources to help them navigate through their mental health. I also feel like I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot from a lot of the guest speakers we have had. So I don't want to name anyone because I don't want to leave anyone out, but they've all contributed a lot. And I've learned a lot of things about myself, including the fact that I used alcohol as a crutch, which is one thing that I didn't know, and I'm not sure if I would have known if I didn't join the program. Another thing is that I felt like I've built a bond with Brother Be Well. I'll definitely be tapping back in after the program, tapping back in with the blog, keeping update with the photos, the videos, the articles, everything that goes on to the blogs. I'm tapped in. So I just want to say thank you for the 10 weeks. Anybody that's looking at joining the program, join the program. All of the sponsors who sponsored the program, I thank you. I appreciate you. And Michael P Coleman, thank you. Coach Crump, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Justin, thank you. Roland, thank you. Everyone, thank you. Everybody that was behind the boards, everybody that was cutting the instrumentals, dropping the sign-in sheets. I just want to say thank you to everyone.